And welcome to the Midday Show. Beware the Ides of March. Do you know that you know the history better than I do? Or do I know the history better than you? We're going to talk about it. News like it's 2016. Trump is everywhere. Whether you want him to be or not, Trump is here. I think 2024 is going to be more like 2016 than what anybody could have projected. Beard and brackets, it's obviously March Madness, some coaching hiring stuff that we want to get to at the end. I want to ask you, there was a new diving record. How long do you think you could hold your breath? That's impressive. That's at least 30 seconds. I think the intro's 20 seconds.
I wonder, I've never been good at it.
Yeah.
Like I know as a kid, like swimming underwater and stuff.
Yeah.
My brother was much better at the long breath hold. Like physically, athletically, my brother was much better than about pretty much everything. I'm better at shooting pool. Does that count?
I mean, it counts.
Is that a sport? Is that a skill?
I don't know if it's related, but it certainly
counts. But yes, no, he was better. I was never a great the hold your breath games. I was better at staring contests once I got contacts because that it's kind of cheating.
That's weird. Most people get worse once they get contacts.
Oh no, your eyes don't dry out.
Oh, it's the well, I guess it depends. You have hard or soft?
Do they make hard contacts anymore?
That's a good question. I don't know if they make.
I don't know. But no, I was never. What is the record? Hold on, let me guess. I thought you get to like 6 minutes and you were unconscious, but the record is going to be more than that because it's going to be some guy from the Philippines who's a skin diver give me the record.
So we were talking with Joe Smith about this. What's her name in Avatar broke Tom Cruise's record. I think she held her breath for over 3 minutes. Did you see this?
That's the record?
Well, no. I'm just bringing up a relative topic to it.
Oh, okay.
Because you said, like, I think I could go for a minute. Like, the best actors and actresses, when they have to do stuff for, like, underwater scenes, they've been clocked over, like, 2.5, 3 minutes holding their breath. And I would imagine an actor and actress isn't, like, trained.
They're not trained, right.
Like, it's like it's just an average person doing it.
But that's what my guess. It's not going to be like a Navy SEAL. It's not going to be a Coast Guard, like, diver. It's going to be some dude from a third world country who like dives for pearls.
Okay, well, this one's different because this one isn't just how long could you hold your breath. This was actually how far could they go, and then also.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so
same thing. Same winner.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a 40-year-old Czech diver who went 50 meters, 164 feet, without a wetsuit. Went down, pulled the sticker off the thing, came back up. They were swimming vertically down and then vertically back up for 1:54. But again, like it's a different challenge, right? Because it's like a speed challenge, like you're moving.
Yeah, like that kind of. I mean, the holding your breath thing, because we've all held our breath, and you get to that, you feel that. I can't imagine what your body goes through with the pressure changes and differences. Like that kind of wigs me out a little bit. Because that's how far do you say? 60 meters?
164 feet, 50 meters.
So it's over 50 yards, like that. Your body wasn't made
to do that.
Do you know how heavy water is?
And then
like water's not heavy until you pick up a gallon of it.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, let's put all like I can't imagine.
That's like the most.
Where'd you say he's from the Czech Republic?
He's 40 from the Czech Republic. That's the most fascinating thing about, like, have you ever seen like the huge aquariums and like not only in home, but obviously like when you go to the Baltimore Aquarium. I mean, that's the most fascinating part of it that no one talks about is what it actually takes to hold that much water. I mean, the math that goes into it and the actual structure itself to actually withhold it all is the amount of force that is behind that glass is fathomable.
Yeah.
Imagine what's behind that. It's pretty. The Ides of March are the Ides of March. What is it?
It's like the middle of the month.
It is the middle of the month. Do you know?
But it's different because each month, like there's 31 days in March. Yeah. There's 30 days. There's a.
Do you know what the other two names of the Ides of March were, like on the calendar? So like the Ides isn't the only thing in the month. Like the Romans also had the first was also had a name, and then the 7th also had a name.
Oh no, I did not know that.
Yeah. So the 7th is the nuns or the nons. It's NONES.
Okay.
The first is the Calends or the Calends.
Do you know what?
Almost like a cal. It's like a calendar. KALEND.
What's like the 7th? Like I understand the Ides is the middle, essentially.
Yeah. So the 7th is just the nuns. So then
Like
there was
the half of the first.
It's the half of the Ide, I guess. So there were before the nuns, which
Interesting.
was 2 through 6 was before the nuns, and then 8 through
I never knew that.
was before
I
the
never
Ides.
knew that.
Yes.
Look
So
at that.
there
You
is
just
like
taught
a
me
whole-
something today. A little
I
bit
know.
of trivia.
But I didn't know if you actually like knew.
It was
where the
Julius
Ides of March
Caesar,
was.
wasn't it, when Shakespeare wrote about it?
Yes. Beware of the Ides of March is what is whispered to Julius Caesar by his fortune teller, I believe. It's a fortune.
It was the
Somebody who's telling the
soothsayer.
fortune. Yes. Is telling Julius Caesar that.
Beware the Ides of March.
I
So there you go.
did-
But every month has it.
I knew about the names before the Ides. I didn't know. Did you know some of the things that have happened on March 15th?
Julius Caesar got stabbed.
Julius Caesar got stabbed. In 1939, Hitler marched into the Czechoslovakia. Did you know that?
Before that guy
1939.
dove.
Also, in 1941, there was a huge blizzard in the northern parts of America, North Dakota, Minnesota. Over 151 people died in less than 24 hours because of
In what year?
1941. There was 7-foot snow drifts. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in less than 15 minutes, stranding people on roads and traffics and in downtown areas. 151 people died.
Okay, just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
To drop 20 degrees in 15 minutes.
Yes.
Is something that none of us can relate to.
No.
Like we've had the days where it's changed.
Correct.
Kind of, but not like that.
Yeah. So that happened on March 15th, 1941. There were also recorded 85-mile-per-hour winds, and apparently there were no warnings like from the weather. Like apparently going into the day, there wasn't even reports of possible snow or anything like that.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
No
So it was
wonder.
very, very bad. In
There was-
1986.
Oh, God.
No, in 1986, almost 100 people were stuck and stranded in a hotel collapse in Singapore. In 2003, there was the SARS outbreak was announced on March 15th. And the Syrian Civil War in 2011 started on March 15th as well.
Huh. There you go.
Which I'm sure if you did that for any day,
you
would
could find stuff, but still.
Yeah.
I just noticed this weekend over scrolling through Facebook, and I never thought about it. It was the 30-year anniversary of the flood back at the spring snowstorm of '93.
Yeah.
Was in March, and we were on spring break playing baseball in Florida, trying to beat the storm back up the coast.
Yeah. And
we got to Maryland and couldn't make it.
Couldn't do it.
And we pulled off into some hotel, and we had no money left because we were like, they told us they're like, four people per room. We're like, yeah, we don't have that many kids.
Yeah.
And we literally shoved like all these people into 3 rooms. We were cleaning out a convenience store. People were buying bread and peanut butter and jelly because we didn't know how long we were going to be there. We didn't know when supplies were going to come in. Like it was, no, we did get home kind of the next day.
Yeah.
But it was, so anyways, 30 years ago, because then it all came in March. We got this big storm and then it all melted and it was a mess.
Oh yeah, it was really bad. So that's like the Ides of March. That's the 15th. You can actually look up also, they have lists of before the Ides of March. So that's the 8th to essentially the 15th of March.
Okay.
And that list gets pretty wild because you start to include different things, storms, stuff like that.
Right.
So notoriously, that week of March, if you actually go back through, it is a little more daunting than like your average week.
Well, March is such a bad weather month.
Yeah.
But yes, but every month has an Ides. Like there's the Ides of July, the Ides of August, but the only one we ever care about is this one because Shakespeare said so.
I think like I said to you before the show, you seem to care about it more than most people.
How do you not?
Which
the Ides of March.
I'm still trying to understand.
Beware.
Not only is the size force of the large aquarium tanks impressive, the scale of size and number of pumps, filters, and conditioning equipment for tanks of those sizes is also outrageous.
Oh, don't act like he knows what he's talking about. He's
like
making that up.
Imagine like a large aquarium at like SeaWorld. Like I don't even think people understand what actually goes into it.
I don't.
I mean, it's almost unfathomable.
It would be one, and I've never thought of it before. And now the next time I'm in the aquarium in Baltimore, which I don't know when it'll be, but I'll be there again. It will be I tell you, when I walk down the streets in New York City, all I do is do this
Mhm.
and I try to figure out how people figure out how to build it with the infrastructure, with buildings next to it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the engineering and the architectural ingenuity that went into it. And by the way, all these buildings, not all of them, but the Empire State Building is 100 years old.
Yeah.
Like, not only they did it 100 years ago.
Yeah. So I was watching a video where this is going to be a tangent day. I can just tell. So I was watching a video yesterday, and they had on a specialist. He's like an Egyptologist. Like,
Okay.
he basically studies the pyramids and their
Okay.
culture. And that stuff is incredible because the things they're finding now with the new technology, so they can basically see like what's underground without having to dig what's underground. They've basically found ways to like do samples and get inside without destroying the structures. It is unbelievable the stuff they're figuring out about. Basically, they're saying like the pyramids are impossible.
They're impossible to build.
They're impossible. And so how were they made? Who made them? I mean, it is really, really fascinating. So like you bring up the Empire State Building, like you and I look at it and it's like, oh my God, like 100 years
But
ago.
it was 100 years ago.
Like,
These were.
Yes. And the pyramid stuff is, I listened to, it was about a little over an hour long, about this guy talk about all the new things they're finding. Like they have granite in there that is like perfectly like 90-degree angle granite. And like it's, I mean, today to cut.
So what you're saying is this guy has dedicated his life to studying something, and his assessment is it couldn't be done.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way we view human culture and society. And he's basically come out and said, like, it's impossible. Like something was going on, something happened. There was either advanced technologies or something that was wiped out, because otherwise you cannot explain this stuff.
Okay, these are neat stories. Now we're going to get to a bad story. Can we jump to Chris Beard?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Chris, where it says beards and brackets, right there. Because the brackets start tomorrow. Good luck to everyone. You can't win. Speaking of which, you can study all you want. Doesn't help.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Chris Beard was the guy who he just got hired by Ole Miss, which is a big time, University of Mississippi.
SEC.
It's his SEC school.
Yep.
He was just fired by Texas in January because there was this assault. Basically, him and his girlfriend, fiance, whatever, they're not married, but they are a couple, got into a physical altercation. She called 911 because he was going to choke her out. And Texas then put him on suspension and eventually let him go. The charges were all dropped because, mostly because the fiance didn't want to pursue them. And as the police said, it's hard to get a aggravated assault or whatever it was when the victim is not cooperating. The victim has now altered her story a little bit, but the 911 call and the first police affidavit she made were very clear.
Sure.
When the charges were dropped, when you read Beard's statement, he says things like, I've been waiting for this day. We knew this day would come. Nowhere in it did he say I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And the reason he didn't do it is for all evidence clear is that he did do it.
Sure.
And he didn't get the charges dropped because he was innocent. He got the charges dropped because his girlfriend, they patched things up and she doesn't want to pursue it anymore. Sure. Well, now here we are. This happened in December. It happened this winter.
Yes.
He was suspended it either happened November, December. He was suspended. He was fired in January. Here we are in March. And oh, by the way, Ole Miss brings him in because he's a good basketball coach. And no one debates that. He just took Texas Tech to the Final Four.
Well, he's done at Texas Tech, and even what he's done in Texas in turn. I mean, they're a 2 seed this year, and Texas has not been very good as of late. So,
yes. He has built he's not there now, but he built it.
Yes.
So the SEC, apparently lots of schools around the SEC are unhappy because Ole Miss has apparently sold their soul and said, we don't care what the guy does.
So can
he
I
is a basketball coach.
So can I jump in now?
Absolutely.
I think if we put the situation aside for a second, I think it's fascinating to me that the SEC is upset at Ole Miss that they're going to bring in a questionable coach, because Ole Miss most years is in the bottom half of the SEC.
They're an also-ran.
Yes. I mean, in the SEC, it's just hard to consistently be competitive in the SEC.
When you're up against Kentucky and Arkansas and Florida and those.
And so it's ironic to me that when you look at what the SEC, who they hire, what Alabama's doing this year and as a number 1 seed, and just having players involved in murder cases. They have players that haven't been suspended. They have a coach that like basically acted as nonchalant as you could possibly be about having those things happen. For anybody in the SEC to look at this and be like, Ole Miss, I disagree with that aspect of it. I don't defend Chris Beard, but what I would defend is any school in the SEC to point the finger at Ole Miss is a little
name a school in the SEC. Name a school, but first of all, the coach probably misspoke when he spoke about it. But this kid, the police have investigated this through and through. There are guys up for murder charges. This kid is not charged with anything.
Listen, if you want to talk about the Alabama case, we can. I'm not trying to dive into it. What I'm saying is, like, there are schools in the SEC that are constantly, can we get this kid in? What do we do with this kid? Can we sweep this under the rug? Should we hire this coach with DUI? Should we not? There are things going on in the SEC every day that for them to look at Ole Miss and be like, this is the one that's wrong.
There's differences between DUIs and being a wife beater.
I'm just giving you,
even though she's not his wife.
So just to clarify, you don't think in the SEC, you think this is the worst thing to have happen in the SEC?
I think yes. I don't think there is a coach that has been hired for allegedly beating his wife, fiance, whatever, like this, to the point that she called 911.
No, listen, you're going to try to make this seem as if I'm defending Chris Beard, and I'm not.
I don't think there's anybody close.
What I'm defending is anybody in the SEC who now wants to magically be the moral police. That's what I'm defending. That part makes no sense.
I understand that college sports has well, let's look at it this way. Urban Meyer was essentially fired from Ohio State because he had a coach on his staff who had physical altercations with his wife. And I think that guy and his wife stayed together. I'm not sure. I don't know all the details of that. But Meyer got run out, and rightfully so, because he hired a guy who had these. Ole Miss just skipped all that and we'll hire the guy who did it.
Yes.
And he didn't sit out a while. Like Adrian Peterson was too abusive, they said, to his own kid with physical discipline. And he basically sat out a year of the NFL. There is to say, well, Beard's learned his lesson. From what?
Listen, because we can throw examples out all day.
I don't think you can, though. I don't think there's examples close to this.
Oh, I think there's examples all around the country of a player doing something that if he were any other student, it got so. I mean, the Sandusky thing went on forever.
But he wasn't a coach anymore.
It doesn't always come to light right away. Sometimes it takes a year, sometimes it takes 10, sometimes it never does. I'm just simply here to say that for anybody in the NCAA, for any program, any institution, to just start pointing the finger, being that's the thing, that's the one. I can think Chris Beard is a jerk. I can think there's no way I personally would hire Chris Beard. I'm just saying for the other schools to cast stones at Ole Miss is a little bit of let's take a look in the mirror.
I think there are lots of
What
schools.
Are we all doing?
There's a difference between recruiting violations. There's a difference between, what did they say? Rick Pitino got fired from Louisville because they were having parties for his recruits that there were prostitutes at or whatever. And he didn't host the party. They said that they went on with his knowledge. Okay, that's way different.
Do you think Penn State should have got rid of Joe Paterno?
They did.
Eventually, they did. It took a while.
Correct.
Eventually. So here's the point I'm
making. But again, here's the other thing. Paterno wasn't the culprit. Paterno.
Yes. You're going to keep comparing the situations to Beard, and I understand that. What Chris Beard did was awful. I understand. What I'm trying to say to you is, I think in today's society, things get out quicker, they get discussed quicker, and like you said, in a weird way, this has already been settled. I could bring up the example of the Boston Celtic coach, Ime Udoka, and how Brooklyn tried to hire him in the same season that he was suspended for the entire year.
But what was the issue with him?
And what's that? He basically was like, he wasn't abusing women. He was like having sexual relations and making them feel uncomfortable. He's basically using his elevated power within the organization.
Having sexual relations.
Correct.
Right. But it wasn't violent. There weren't 911 calls.
You're going to try to compare them. What I am saying to you is, I think nowadays, like if this would have happened in 1995,
we'd never know.
No one may have known about it.
Well,
it may not have came out until 2008. Like, we are in such a hyper drive of like something happens.
I don't disagree with that.
Out of it. So all I'm saying is, for now, it's like of all the programs, it's Ole Miss that's going to get slapped with the like it's too soon, like it's too early.
Because Ole Miss sold their soul.
You think Ole Miss sold their soul?
Absolutely.
Do you think they're the first SEC team to sell their soul?
Like this, yes. I can't think of it. And you can. There are guys with the. They're like.
Didn't Bobby Petrino coach an extra year after his whole thing?
Yeah, but Bobby, you know what Bobby Petrino did? He had a girlfriend who worked. He had a college student girlfriend while he was married.
But he had DUIs and right.
Like, and I think that's how he got caught with her.
Correct.
I think it's okay, but it's still way different than abuse to the point of she called 911.
So maybe that's our gap, because for me, you're a leader of young men or you aren't. And so like, you can sit here and debate, is Chris Beard worse than this person? Is this person worse? That's fine. But to me, they're all not leader of men. So to hire one of them is equal to hiring the other.
You make a fair argument, but the debate always comes in because what someone did. If a coach got a parking ticket, does that make him not? Well, of course not. So there's always graduated things of violations that they have, that which ones are egregious and which ones aren't. And I think I don't think you'll find one more egregious than this.
It's really egregious. I just want to state that because somehow
no one's debating that.
I would not hire Chris Beard, but like, I just think it's funny how in a conference that is riddled with violations, coaching hires that are questionable, like, it's not like the SEC is like this sanctimonious place of college sports.
Oh, they have Calipari.
That's all
I'm saying. And Calipari's
saying.
cheated everywhere he's been.
Everywhere.
But he's never, at least, if he did this, we would know about it. In this day and age, if he did this, we would know.
If it was 2025, would you feel the same way you do now?
If it was 2025.
If they waited 2025 and it was announced that Ole Miss was hiring Chris Beard, how would you feel?
Then there would be an interest. If Chris Beard and his fiance or whatever were still together, and they were like we've been through this. It was a low point. He was feeling pressure. I was this. There was substances involved. All this stuff, and we have figured stuff out. And then yes.
So isn't it weird then? Because we went through this with the Udoka thing with the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
I kept arguing with people. It's almost like people are more upset about how long than what he did. And that's a weird place to be at, because I think like people should be forgiven. People should get second chances. But it's a weird thing that people are like, well, no, it's just too soon. And it's like, well, are you upset about the thing, or are you upset that it's too soon?
No, because I think people need the aspect of like, it'd be like, say Chris Beard left Texas in December because he was an alcoholic.
Uh-huh.
Okay, do I turn around and hire him at Ole Miss in February? No. But in 2025, if he's been clean for 2 years or 3 years and he's been through and he's had this, then absolutely I would. So there is a time give someone time to get their life together.
So what if you're Ole Miss and you're like, we will support you through that? Again, I would not hire Chris Beard, but I'm just playing devil's advocate of like, if you're Ole Miss and you're going, listen, would we hire this guy in 2025? And if the answer is yes, then why don't we hire him in 2023 and help him get through it? If we believe enough in this person that we would hire him in 2025, why would we not hire him in 2023?
That is a valid argument. That is a valid argument.
It's a fascinating topic, because I personally wouldn't hire him. Like, I just think there's enough good coaches in the world that like, I don't think I'm hiring Chris Beard right now. I don't think I'm doing it. But again, if
Oh, not right now, no.
But if
in
you're
2025, if depending on what path he's walked for the next 2 years, like in 2025, if he's been through 2 more girlfriends and this acts as like he's the worst person ever and this wasn't the only time, then no, I'm not hiring him. But if people have low points in their life, and there are points where they turn their life around, they become a different person, a better person. They get clean, whatever the case may be.
I think Ole Miss looked at it a little bit like the Brandon Miller in Alabama thing. Like, technically, he has not committed a crime. Like, I think that's how Ole Miss is looking at it.
That's how they look at it.
Same way Alabama's looking at Brandon Miller. Like, he technically has not committed a crime. And so, if you're them, he hasn't committed a crime. Would we hire him in 2025? Yes. Why would we not hire him in 2023 then? That's what
I think the issue with Brandon Miller, who is the basketball player at Alabama in question, who's a super player, by the way, I think that Brandon Miller wasn't charged with a crime, but I think the police fully investigated, and had there been something to charge him with, then he would have been charged. I think the Chris Beard one was, I think society pretty much knows he committed a crime, but it as the police will tell you, it is hard to make the charges stick if the witness is now recanting and changing stories, but the witness is recanting because there's a motivation.
That comparison is fascinating for a lot of reasons, because on one hand, you have somebody who is basically saying, I have not committed a crime, but was a cooperative witness and somebody died.
Correct.
And on the other hand, you have somebody that technically has not committed a crime, but everyone kind of knows what he did, right?
Right.
But no one died. And the person that they're with are still in a relationship.
Maybe the person didn't die because she called 911.
I'm just saying, though, if I don't want to compare the two, but if you did, that is a really unique comparison in the sense of like the value of a life and how does that weigh into the crime and whether there was a crime committed or not. Like, I still have trouble with the Brandon Miller thing. When you say a cooperative witness, because I said to you, I was like, I don't know what a cooperative witness is.
I use my context clues, and
I'm not 100% sure.
Because I said to you, I thought all witnesses cooperated. That's why they're a witness.
Like a cooperative witness, but see, like you're saying cooperative witness in the sense of the witness cooperated with the police.
Correct.
My understanding is that he was a cooperative witness in the sense of like he was cooperative in what happened that night as a witness.
Oh.
Do you see? Yes. You see the difference now.
So you're saying like he was an involved witness.
Correct. He was cooperative in what happened in the sense, but all he did was...
Is that what it means, or is that your speculation?
That's what I'm asking.
Oh, I don't know.
To me, I can look at that two ways.
I just can't imagine in the world that we live in today, especially with... Do you know how much heat the police of Alabama, wherever they're at in Alabama, because was it in Tuscaloosa? Did it happen near campus?
It was like near camp.
Okay.
Like it was in downtown.
So do you imagine the heat that the police would come under if they were like, this kid was really part of the murder of this person, was an active participant and played a real role, but we're going to let it go because he's a good basketball player and Alabama's ranked?
But you don't think that's why the conversation is interesting. You don't think some people feel that way? Like,
I think there are people that are jumping to that. But I think when you sit down and talk about it, why? No, the police would never do that.
No,
not in this day and age.
I'm not saying the police would do it. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if that's how some people feel. I think there's also a sentiment of like, at what point would nothing be happening? Because like, if you're the 6th man, are you suspended? Are you off the team? If you're the 15th man, are you suspended? If you're just a random student on campus, are you even on campus anymore? Like, that's the part of it where
I think lots of stuff happens on campus, and they're like, this guy was charged and this guy wasn't.
Like you know for a fact that a student on campus would still be a student on
campus. Not if they weren't charged.
Oh,
I don't think it would happen. I think they would be like, there's a police investigation, there's a murder investigation. These are the people that were charged. These are the people that weren't.
You know what police get wrong, even when they try their hardest sometimes? Investigations.
Well, I get it, but it's not, we still live in a land of innocent until proven guilty.
I get it.
And
that's why
it's not even like, it's one thing if they were charged and went to trial and were found innocent, like OJ.
Yeah.
That's one. He didn't even get charged.
But my argument with Brandon Miller from the start of this has been the same of, I'm not implying he should be behind bars. Like you said, there was an investigation. They decided that he's not being charged with anything. My argument, though, is like every program has a handbook. Every campus has a student handbook. Like everything that you're a part of has like
and no one reads.
No, but every program that you're a part of had, like when you played football in college, was there not a sheet of paper that you had to sign that said like, here's the guidelines, Mark Messina, You didn't have to do that in college.
Maybe, I don't remember.
Okay. Like when I was in college, you got a piece of paper. It said like there were certain things that you weren't supposed to do on campus, off campus. You're representing the university, signed, right?
Okay.
So my point is like, the problem with Brandon Miller is not that he hasn't been charged. The problem with Brandon Miller is the program and the university are trying to act as if nothing happened. And to me,
I don't necessarily agree with that.
And to me, if you go through, like for example, the handling of a firearm, you're telling me that nowhere within the campus guidelines, within the team guidelines, within any part or aspect that he is a part of Alabama University, that there's not something about firearms and weapons. Honestly, there's nothing. So again,
you're probably right.
So again, like he can. I'm not saying he needs to be behind bars. I'm not saying he's got to be kicked off the team. I'm not saying, but to just roll him out the next day. And for the coach to just act nonchalant and for them to just act as if it's business as usual, it's just not. Like it's not something. Suspend them for a half, suspend them for a game, make them sit for a week. But I don't know what the punishment is depending on what their rules or guidelines are.
Why is the school suspending him if the police did their thorough investigation?
Because they can't arrest him for like handling a firearm, right? Like
sure
that's not a crime.
Sure they can.
It's not a crime to handle a firearm. That's not a crime.
Is it stolen? Is it not? Like if you don't have a license to carry.
Okay, so do you think he should be behind bars then? Because he had a firearm in his car and delivered it.
I don't know enough of the investigation. But what I do is if the police decided he's not even chargeable.
I understand that. But just because, for example, you have team rules at Montoursville,
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. Your team rules don't align with the law necessarily. Like you probably have things with, like for example, you probably have team rules
like,
that say
if you're ineligible,
class, but you wouldn't be arrested for failing a class.
No, you make a good point.
So my only issue with Brandon Miller is not that he's still on the team. It's not that he's not behind bars. My issue is that Alabama is continually trying to act as if nothing happened, and it's very clear that in a random night,
that's fair. He
had to have violated some sort of trust or team rule on the campus of Alabama. He had to have.
Yes, that is a very good point. Comparing it to academics or something like that, there are two.
Only thing against Brandon Miller and the University of Alabama.
So
that's it.
I get that. Now let me ask you this: how many? If Lock Haven Bald Eagle basketball, if every time that you guys violated the team rule, if you were suspended for half, how many games would you guys have had where you didn't have enough players to suit up?
We would have always had a full lineup. Always had a full lineup. I can say
that was not the answer I was expecting. That was funny. Very well done.
Thank you. I can say that in my entire time on campus, I did not see one firearm.
Wow. Okay.
Program. That's all.
Because your list of team rules were no gun.
That's all I'm saying.
Jim Everett.
I think there's a difference in the handbook because these things didn't happen on school property or not. I don't think the school is able to act unless the police do because this didn't happen on school property, so their hands are tied to the law. I disagree that they can't necessarily accuse him legally of anything, but you can still punish a player. If a player's underage,
because if you're on a road trip,
campus, yes.
Yeah, if you're on a road trip and you get a bar fight.
That doesn't count. Yeah. I appreciate the comment, but that doesn't count. What else did you want? Did you want to talk about your bracket? Did you pick a winner?
I did not yet. I did not. I told people this when I sit down with my bracket, because there are people who delve, who are studying, who are. Yeah. It will take me 4 minutes. Yeah. 6 minutes.
Sure.
I just get on a roll and I like this team and I don't like this team. And how long will it take you to fill out yours?
As my mom used to say, the numbers are right there. So it's
Colin Cowherd says that too.
He's
like, they have eggheads who all they do and they tell you which teams are better. So just go along with it.
No, as far as how long does it take me? Not very long. Probably at most 10 minutes.
Do you have a champion yet?
I obviously like Alabama because I feel like they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder. I feel like they feel like the world is
I think they're pretty good too.
And they're very, very good. I really like UCLA, but I hate that they got stuck with Kansas.
Well, and they have an injury, don't they? Don't they have a real injury?
But they have a lot. People forget that UCLA team. They still have, I think, 2 starters from the Final Four team from a couple years ago.
When they were in the play-in game. They were in the first 4 to the Final Four.
So I think I like UCLA, but I hate their draw So I've been shying away from him. So
And you like their coach because he's a short, bald, white guy who you
Cronin?
can tell wouldn't even get picked for a pickup
It's
game.
Cronin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's pretty crazy.
He's,
Have you ever watched him on a sideline?
At Cincinnati, he was a madman.
Yeah.
Then he had real health problems.
Okay.
I think he took a year off, and I don't remember if it was cancerous
Yeah.
or if it was something. But he reminds me a little bit of like Paul Giamatti or whatever they act.
Yeah.
He is like Jeff Van Gundy, a guy who would never like. Why are you you didn't play basketball? You're 5'4" and you're white and you've never played basketball. But he is a really good coach.
This is what's weird for me. If you would have said to me before the tournament, who do I like a lot? I would have told you Alabama. I would have told you Kansas. I would have told you Arizona, and I would have told you UCLA. And two of them are on the same side, and two of them are on the same quadrant. So essentially, two of the four of my teams I would have had in my Final Four can't even get to the Final Four. So it's a weird the Purdue Marquette Duke bracket is that's a disaster.
I like Texas.
That's really you like Texas.
I like Texas, and I think the whole Steve Fisher thing of
helps.
Like we're with an interim coach who's an interim coach and who
I don't like Texas's draw because they're going to get A&M. I think unfortunately, I think I'm wearing my Andrew Funk hat today. Unfortunately, I think Penn State's going to lose to Texas A&M. Texas A&M should be like a 4. Like they're good.
Texas is still a 2, and they're good.
I know, but that is a rough draw for Texas.
Hook 'em horns, baby. Hook 'em horns.
My cousin and I were saying last night, if A&M does beat Penn State and Texas A&M play in the second round, there are like brackets, like projections where that would have been an Elite 8 game. Like there were some.
No, I get it.
There are some fields that had.
But
like,
it doesn't
Texas
mean
A&M
Texas is losing. Just because Texas A&M's better than a 7 seed, Texas is rolling.
Okay.
Matthew McConaughey says so.
You're only saying this.
Did you see his orange shoot the other day?
Yes. You're only saying this because you picked them in your auction last night, and now you have to like go with it. Okay.
Well,
so that's
that's who I wanted going in.
That's it. Penn State's in trouble. I fear for Penn State. I'm going to root hard for them Thursday night, but I fear for them. I think Texas A&M is really like I can't believe that's their game.
I will say this, and in football season, I'm a Susquehanna fan. I am not, because I played at Susquehanna. I'm not a Penn State football fan. I've kind of been quietly a Penn State basketball fan because they don't have a lot of fans up until now.
Yeah.
Everyone goes out for March Madness. Everyone, Thursday night, if you're a guy, you're watching with your friends. There is a really, really good chance that by 9:55 I'm home so I can watch it. And not that in any establishment you're going to be in, they're going to have the volume up on that TV and you can, but I might, I don't know. I have not looked this forward to a March Madness game. I was intrigued by Pitt last night because my daughter goes to Pitt, even though she even said that's the first Pitt game she's watched all year. But they have injuries. They're not that good. Like Penn State intrigues me, and I'm ready for that game Thursday night.
So last night I find it was the first time I really looked at the bracket, like actually like sat down and looked at it. This is one of the worst brackets the committee has done. As far like you can find things that make no sense all over the bracket. And you had brought up Penn State. Illinois has a higher seed than Penn State. Okay. Penn State swept Illinois 3-0 against them. And I think Illinois had one more win. And it's just like, what are you doing? Like,
I have no idea why Indiana's a 4. I have no idea why Indiana's
a 4. There are things, and listen, that's not just like a Penn State homer thing. All over the bracket, you can find these bizarre discrepancies that don't make any sense.
I don't understand why Auburn got a first-round game in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, they're an 8-9 game, so it's essentially a coin flip.
Yeah.
And Auburn gets a home game.
I totally agree.
Well, here's one, too, that Iona is playing in New York.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a home game, but they're playing UConn, who is, so it's, but anybody else other than UConn, and that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
But
they even brought like Northwestern, which I know like you have to look at the whole thing. Northwestern was the 2 seed in their conference. And I know they lost to Penn State and they got bumped down to a 7. Like if you finish second, if the Big Ten's this great
Indiana
conference,
got lost to Penn State and they're a 4.
Yes. Like if the Big Ten is this great conference that everyone was raving about all season long, and you find a way to be the 2 seed in it, and you get knocked down to a 7, then is the Big Ten good? How can you tell me the Big Ten is good when the team that got a 2 seed, you're seeding them at a set? It just all over the place.
I'll tell you another one
really
I didn't understand that I thought was way higher than it should have been, and it's just because of blue blood reputation is Michigan State. Michigan State's a 7.
You thought they should have been higher or lower?
Lower. They're like what are they, 19 and 14?
Yeah.
I realized they lost a game during the season because of the shooting on campus, and I realized Michigan State has dealt with stuff this season that most schools haven't.
Right.
But they're not a 7.
Like the Penn State thing's weird to me, and I'll try to keep this very short. Penn State gets a 10 seed. So you didn't reward Penn State for getting all the way to the conference title in this great Big Ten, right? But then you also didn't act as if the Big Ten was great when you seeded the rest of the teams.
Indiana's a 4.
So it's like, I understand that. So like if you think Purdue's a 1 and you think Indiana's a 4, then Penn State has to be higher than a 10.
Amen.
But vice versa. If you think the Big Ten's so great, then like why is Penn State a 10? Like why is like
no, I get it.
It just doesn't. It was really, really bizarre. Really, really bizarre. I will share this, but I'm not happy about it. My favorite seating is UNC not having one. So there you go. Happy? There we go. We got that out. You wanted to. We have about 10, 15 minutes. You wanted to mention.
Do we have 10 or 15? Should we stay? Should we go?
That is up to you. If you're having a bad time, we can get off right now.
No, I think the other topic, well, it's fun and it's like,
we can talk about it lightheartedly.
Yeah, I think
it's
just
feeling,
the fascinating
more and more like 2016. Every day it feels a little bit more like it's 2015 and we're
politically. Yes. And I'm not even sure. I think the climate, the fascinating part of the climate is, first of all, whichever side you want to talk on, first of all, we'll go, the Democrats have a first-term president who always in history, the first-term president runs for re-election, except maybe not this time. And because of his age.
How do you feel about that right now? Because I feel like he is.
I feel like he wants to.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit of this game of chicken that, like, well, it depends what the Republicans are going to do, because they, as the incumbents, the Democrats certainly don't have to show their hand first. So they're going to kind of wait and figure it out.
I agree, but you can't wait too long.
Amen.
Okay.
So on the Republican side, like, Trump's stock has never been lower lately. But who's going to run against him?
Who do you think feels that way, though? Because I'm telling you right now, on the other side, I don't know if people feel that way.
On the Republican side?
Yes.
I think there are a lot of Republicans who look and say, he already lost to Biden. We can't send him back up. Part of the beef with Biden is he's so old. What's Trump, 77?
But I think a lot of Republicans now are coming to the realization that it didn't have as much to do with the fact that he lost to Biden as much as it had to do that he lost to COVID. Like he lost to, like, I think Republicans are kind of looking at it going like this, if he runs against Biden again, this could be a Trump win. I think a lot of Republicans.
I don't disagree with that. But I think anybody that they run against Biden could be a Republican win. So it's I don't.
Did you hear how Bill Maher described it right now?
How?
He said that Democrats want to believe that Republicans want DeSantis, but DeSantis is like the tribute band, and why would you want to listen to the tribute band when the band is right there? Like the band's right there. That's a perfect analogy. And you can listen to the band. And Democrats are like, "Have you heard this tribute band?" Like, and it's like, no. Like the band's right there. Like we don't need like. And that is, I think, paints a very good picture of where we're at right now. I think Democrats want to believe that Republicans want DeSantis, but it's kind of like, no. Like we kind of feel like we did in 2015. And all of a sudden it's like, it's right there again. And it's like, so why would we take the watered down thing? Like it's right there.
Here's and it's to stick with tribute bands. I think it's a great analogy because sometimes the old time band, isn't as they've gone through, some member changes, a little substance abuse, a little.
Sure.
You know what the tribute band is? Yeah. They look the part, they sound the part, and they're ready to go.
You know what's funny about that analogy you just gave, though, is I say to you all the time, why do people go watch these old people? And you said because it's it.
Because it's a good story.
And that's what'll happen in politics. Like they will, even though that might sound better, that like it is still that.
It's funny you mentioned that because I just a friend of mine on Facebook has just said how much they like going to see tribute bands because the music sounds good Everything sounds good. It looks the part. And I can go see a tribute band for $30 or $40 as opposed to going to see the real band for $300, $400.
Yeah.
And they're like, go see the tribute bands. They're a blast.
But your vote's free. You don't have to pay.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
It
It is a great analogy. It is a great analogy.
The other thing that they discussed too, and you and I brought this up a little bit, he had 3 liberals on the show, and which he doesn't always do.
He doesn't usually do.
But from time to time
has.
he does. From time to time he does. This time he had 3 liberals, and they basically, the conversation for 15 minutes turned into, what are the things that liberals don't understand about conservatives? What are the things they don't understand about the MAGA right, like Trump voters? And one of the things that Bill Maher was very adamant about, and the other guy, was like most Democrats or liberals do not understand that it's really not about Trump. Like it's just the idea of like what it represents, and it's kind of like sticking it to the guy. And so it's not like draining the swamp. It's just the fact that you're not voting for someone that is viewed as like the stereotypical in the swamp, right?
No, I get that.
The irony to that in 2024 is like, I would argue Trump has never been more swampy.
No, I get what you're saying.
Trump now maybe knows, I don't know if he cares, but he probably knows more so now how to play the game, what the game is, all those things. I would argue this campaign so far, from what I've read, feels way more swampy than the original 2014, 2015.
No, I get that. It's why it's such a fascinating time in American political history.
Yeah.
It is fascinating. And nobody knows what's coming.
I think it's Biden. I think it's Biden-Trump. I think
right now, if you were a betting man, you would bet Biden-Trump.
Like when you say nobody knows what's coming, short of those 2 falling over dead, and I don't mean any disrespect by that.
No, I get it.
But short of those 2 falling over dead, that's what it's going to be. Am I wrong? I mean,
I don't know if the Democrats are sending Biden again. But they need someone. It's like, you take out this, if you're going to bench the starting quarterback, you better believe in your backup.
You know what
do they have a backup they believe in?
You know what the Democrats aren't great at, though, is they're not great at letting the process actually pick their candidate. Like if you like the way they've got Hillary to the finish line, the way they got Biden to the finish line, like the Democrats are not great at just like going through the process, going through the caucuses and saying, this is like, they're just not that good at it. That's why Obama was such a surprise, because it was like, wait a second, like, are they really just going to let this person roll through? And that's what made it so fascinating with Obama.
I'm with you. It is a
lot
fascinating
of people said it was fascinating because he was black. To me, the Obama thing was fascinating because the Democrats actually let like the process go through, and someone came through on the other side that you wouldn't expect. Democrats aren't good at like letting someone like Trump just roll through the party. They won't do it. They'll make sure a Hillary ends up at the end. They'll make sure a Joe ends up at the end. So I just don't know if it's not Joe Biden, who are the Democrats possibly going to let roll through?
You know who? If it was one time later, it could be Shapiro. But I don't think he's been there enough. Okay. Even though Obama was only a 1-term senator. Shapiro's got a future.
Okay. I don't dislike Shapiro. Like, I'll just show a little opinion here. I don't dislike Shapiro. I don't love Shapiro. I think on a debate floor, Trump would eat Shapiro. Like the dynamics of it would not favor Shapiro, because I think Shapiro is going to be like very straight-laced, like factly, like and like Trump eats that up. He destroys. If you come out like Hillary or Joe and you just want to like give facts and numbers, he didn't lose to Joe Biden. He lost to COVID. He lost to a country being scared, is what he lost to.
Yeah, but
You think Joe Biden won that election, or do you think
Trump
lost?
I think Trump. I think people voted against Trump.
I think Trump lost that election,
but
I don't think it had very much to do with Joe Biden.
But I don't think his stock has risen since then.
Whose stock has?
Trump's.
I don't think it has to on one side. I think 45% of the country already knows they're checking off Trump. The question is what happens to the independents and the people in the middle. Do they feel like they did in 2014, 2015, or has enough happened that they don't feel that way anymore?
Do you think they like Trump more now?
I don't think out of the 45% that are going to check Trump, I would argue like 20% of them don't even like Trump.
I get what you're saying.
It is. That's
okay.
The thing. Like, that's the issue with like when I talk to my Democratic friends, like, how do you like Trump? You don't. Like, that's the first
No, I
thing
get
as
it.
a Democratic voter, that's the first thing you have to get out of your head is it's not about whether the voter likes him or not. That's the first thing.
It is. It's like back to your quarterback. Like as a Dallas Cowboy, do I think Dak's okay? I think he's okay. I don't love Dak.
But you're going to root
better,
for him.
But I'm going to root
You're
for
gonna
him.
root
He's
for
better
him. You're
than
gonna cheer
anybody
for him.
else we got.
It's really, really interesting. And
It
guess
is.
what? It's sneaking up really fast.
I know. We're
It's
2023
happening,
already.
I know. It's happening faster than I think.
You know how
really
far into
realized.
2023 we are? We're to the Ides of March.
The Ides of March.
Beware.
I love
Beware.
that. I love that that's like a thing for you.
Because
like
the
really,
word
really important
before it starts with beware.
History shows a long record of bad economies flipping the controlling party, and I'm not sure how much any of the Republican candidates can mess that up. That's very true. And then did you see the Michael Irvin stuff? Have you, as a Cowboys fan, have you kept up with it? They released the hotel footage. So you know how you
I remember that whole story. They released it.
So they released the footage.
Let me guess. It's not exactly how he said it happened.
The opposite. Everything that I'm reading, and I haven't watched it. My cousin watched it. Everything that I'm seeing and reading is it actually plays in his favor very, very well.
Good for him.
Yes.
I like
it out when we get off.
I like the playmaker. He's certainly not led them.
Do you know how they got
cleanly.
the? Do you know how they got the footage?
Mm-mm.
They were suing Marriott for like I think it was an absurd number. I'm pretty sure it was like an 8-digit, 9-digit number.
Who? The plaintiffs?
Michael Irvin sued for the footage.
Oh, okay.
Sued Marriott because Marriott would not release the footage.
Why?
I don't know. So then finally Marriott released it. They took the lawsuit off, and now the footage is out.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Why wouldn't they just release it?
I don't know. Well, here's the other thing too. If you're Michael Irvin, you're the one trying to get the footage. That's the
if
other
you think
part
it helps
of
your story, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so far from everything I've read, it does.
Good.
It's very,
I like
very
he,
interesting.
as I said, he's been colorful. I'm not sure that he has led the
Bogut
most
said
pristine
Marriott
pass.
for $100 million. I'm pretty sure he was. I'm pretty sure
And
that
now he
lawsuit is
dropped it.
off now since they released the footage.
Good. That's interesting.
Pretty crazy. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. Go Andrew Funk. Do you know where Andrew Funk was before Penn State?
Bucknell?
He was a Bucknell Bison before he started playing for Shrewsbury and the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I love the transfer portal. I think it's great. Texas, go Texas. That's my pick, and because we won't do a show tomorrow, I don't think. You say Alabama. You like UCLA as well.
I would pick UCLA if they weren't in the same bracket as Kansas. I just don't love that. It makes me. Alabama's path should be.
I don't have my thing in front of me. Hold on, let me grab it. Do you have an underdog?
Creighton. I love Creighton. I think Creighton has a lot of pieces that in most years.
Creighton is a 6, correct?
But I think they're underseeded. I think most years Creighton could have gotten to like the Final Four.
I'll tell you one. I really think Iona has a chance to win a game.
Okay.
Because of Patino, and they got UConn, but what about UConn? I think USC could beat Michigan State just because I think Michigan State's overhyped.
Okay.
And there was another one. So answer me this.
Yeah.
So one of the talking heads, and I don't remember who it was, Furman, Virginia, first round game.
Yeah.
Because Virginia plays the way they play, and they're the one that lost to UMBC. They're not really going to blow people out.
Yeah. Would you be scared if you're a Virginia fan?
Well, I would always be scared if I was a Virginia fan.
Just because of their style? Because of the style they play. Because you're either winning the national title or you're losing the first 116 game ever in the history of college basketball. So the interesting one, and they talked about this a little bit on Simmons and some other podcasts, the Tennessee, Louisiana Raging Cajuns, I believe it is.
Yes, that's who they have.
That game is interesting because Louisiana has two guys that are like legitimate NBA prospects.
Okay.
Like guys that could end up getting drafted. Tennessee's head coach is Rick Barnes, and people do not like Rick Barnes. People think Rick Barnes is one of the most overrated coaches in the history of college basketball. So if you're just looking for games that, like, on paper, that upset makes a ton of sense. Because the Raging Cajuns will have athletes that can match up with Tennessee.
Okay, so give me this, and then I will shut up and we will go.
Okay.
But you know this better than anybody.
I don't know about that.
So we'll go west. You've got Gonzaga's a 3. You always love Gonzaga. I'd never take Gonzaga to win because they'll never win. St. Mary's is a 5. 5 is 5. Like, isn't Duke a 6?
Duke's a 5.
Okay, so St. Mary's is the level of Duke according to these people, and I know Duke's hot, but whatever. Can St. Mary's make a run?
Um,
Like they got VCU, UConn. They're in the same side. They would have to get through Kansas in the Sweet 16.
No. That's why I said these brackets this year is brutal because you just have like you're looking at it like, can St. Mary's make a run? That bracket's brutal. I mean, they have 2 of my top 3 teams in the same side, and I don't think UConn's a slouch either. Like it's the one bracket's the bracket.
Who
if you're looking,
is Danny Hurley at UConn now?
Not sure.
I think
sure
he
who's
is.
at UConn now. The bracket that's a mess is the Duke one. That one is because I think Purdue is great, or I'm sorry, I think Purdue is good. I don't think they're great. I think depending on if you can get up and down on them, it could get very scary for them. If Edie gets in foul trouble, it could be very scary for them. I love FAU. I think FAU is really good as a 9 seed, but again, they're a 9 seed. Like if FAU was like a 6, I would be like Sweet 16. But they got to go through Memphis, who's super talented. You got to go through Purdue, who's the best in the Big Ten. And then even if you get through that, like Duke's sitting there, I don't think Marquette is like phenomenal. I think they're good, but like as a 2 seed, I'm much more scared of UCLA or Texas or like, like Marquette's the worst 2 seed. So it's, I don't know, that bottom bracket, I'm
K-State and Kentucky are there too.
Like it's just that bottom bracket's not great compared to the other brackets, compared to the other ones.
See, what I think makes this bracket hard is I keep looking through all these, and it's really easy for me to find teams that I don't think are all that good.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to find teams that I think are really good.
Well,
that's why.
I think there's always a feel of like if you go chalk, you're probably doing something wrong. And you should feel the opposite.
Chalk is the favorites.
Yes. If you should be looking at the Alabamas, the Houstons, the Kansas. Those teams are really solid.
Isn't Houston ultra vulnerable because of the injury?
Yes, but I don't think that's what makes them great. I think what makes Houston great is Sampson. I think what makes Houston great is like they really believe they're playing for. Did you know they have more kids within a certain radius of their school than any other?
They kept
program?
more local kids. Yes, I did know that.
So I think they have some things going for them that like a lot of other schools do.
It's interesting, just a tidbit, a Matt Rule story from Temple, because we just did an article here that Matt Rule is in town. The coach of Nebraska, who used to be the coach of the Carolina Panthers. When he was the head coach at Temple, I heard one of the mantras was, if there is a big-time player within the city of Philadelphia, we're not letting him leave. And that they recruited locally, really, and that's because Temple's only been good while Matt Rule was there, really. Yeah, sure. And for Houston to do that, there's obviously enough talent in the city. Houston's huge.
Right.
And if they're like, we're going to get these kids and we're going to keep them, it obviously worked.
And Houston's, like you said, massive.
It's the 4th biggest city in the country.
There's places around the country that if you are a college coach, if you can just keep kids at home, your job all of a sudden becomes very easy.
Yes. And Houston is one of them.
And Calvin Sampson has done that for himself.
Yep.
Because it's not like, obviously they have history, but it's not like before Calvin Sampson got that job, Houston was like this Gonzaga of the South.
They have old history.
Like, yes.
Yes.
So anything else while you're looking at it?
No, it's good. I'm rooting for Bruce Pearl too. I think Auburn over Iowa, and then Auburn against Houston, I think, is a scary matchup. And the Bruce Pearl, Calvin Sampson makes me, that intrigues.
Makes you smile.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, guys. Good luck with your brackets. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina, and we will see you guys soon.
Let's eat.